Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the third episode of our franchise webinar. We're really excited to talk with you guys today about something that we all have in common, our love for coffee. So I'll be your host today alongside Lori Schwartz and Lindsay Lambert. And today on the agenda, our discussion will cover the following topics. We're going to go into our New Orleans roots. We're going to talk about the PJ's promise of high quality coffee. We'll get a little bit of insight on the state of the coffee industry, and then we'll get into Felton's background and roles with PJ's. But now I'd like to turn it over to Lori to introduce our special guest today. Lori, take it away.
Thank you, Tori. Good morning, everyone. We are very privileged to introduce you to someone who is an integral part of the success of our brand and an ambassador for all things PJs. Mr. Felton Jones joined the PJs team in 1993 in production under the direction of our founder, Phyllis Jordan. He is certified by the Specialty Coffee Association of America in green coffee purchasing and contracts, and now serves as PJ's Chief Roastmaster and Brand Ambassador. He just celebrated his 30th anniversary with the company. Please welcome who we affectionately call Dr. Coffee, Mr. Felton Jones. Good morning, Felton.
Good morning. Good morning. What an introduction.
Nice. So let's get started. First, Felton, can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with our founder, Phyllis, as well as why are those New Orleans roots and unique flavors so important to her?
Yeah, I mean our relationship goes back to the beginning of my career 30 years ago. And what I remember about it was when I first met her, I expected this very, corporate, buttoned up, individual, and boy, was I wrong. She was this sweet lady that everyone loved. She was deeply rooted in the community. By the time I came along, we had like five corporate stores that were very much entrenched in the communities, in the various communities around the city, primarily in Uptown New Orleans. And everybody knew Phyllis. And, for her to be that person, but also to be such a coffee aficionado was intriguing to me. And, that's the reason that she didn't have that, that whole buttoned up style of things. She was just the person that, she would get at the cupping table and roll up her sleeves. And she was involved in every aspect of coffee. And to learn that she, taught herself how to roast, in the beginnings, everything was all inspirational. And the funny thing is that I didn't really realize all of that, or I didn't really pay much attention to all of that until later on in my career, that where I was paying attention to it, but I started applying it to what I saw how I was evolving. And so ultimately she took me under her wing, and I consider her as my coffee mom. And I can tell you that, on any day at any given point in time, I could look up and, she's standing outside of my door in my office, coming by to say hi and checking in on things. And so we still have those standards that we have to hold to make certain that we're keeping the queen happy with how things are going. And I'm happy to say she is very much happy with what we're doing and how we're representing the brand. So
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, would you share a little bit about like her ties to New Orleans and why, those unique flavors were important to what she did? And
yeah, it's interesting because Phyllis is, by most people's accounts, she's absolutely considered as a bona fide New Orleanian. And for any Saints fans out there, I don't think there's many Saints fans that can tell you where Drew Brees, is originally from, because to us, Drew Brees is native son, and Phyllis is that same way. So Phyllis is actually a product, I think, of St. Louis, Missouri. She came here very early on in life, and New Orleans got a hold of her, as it does to people. And so she's New Orleans all the way. over her years, she, as well as PJ's, have been involved in the community, whether it be from an overall perspective, a corporate perspective, or a franchise perspective. Our brand has always represented itself in a way where we are an impact to the community. Phyllis has spent time as president of the Green Project. The Green Project is a uh, call it a sort of like a used building materials hub, where if you have a home in New Orleans, and a lot of people live in historical districts in New Orleans where you can't just go to Home Depot and get the materials for your repair. You actually have to have some authentic, types of wood, pieces of wood, things of that nature, doors, windows, you name it. And that organization that she oversaw was an organization that was, a place where you could, go and drop off your used materials instead of just throwing them away, or they would deconstruct the house. They did a lot of that after Hurricane Katrina, where houses had to be torn down. They would go in and anything they could salvage, they would do that. And Phyllis was the president of that organization, a nonprofit organization. She's also done overseen the Symphony Book Fair for many years, where she's been responsible for the fundraising for the New Orleans Symphony. And then lately, the thing that she's been most recently involved in is she was a part of a small group that started a glass recycling process that has now exploded into something way bigger than they would have ever imagined. And now that recycled glass is being processed and used in a way to help restore our wetlands here in Louisiana, in Southeast Louisiana. So you can always bet that you're going to find Phyllis, involved in something like that. And there's not a time that you go somewhere representing PJs that someone wants to tell you their story of how they know Phyllis Jordan. So it's pretty cool to be connected to her.
Thanks, Felton. Well, let's leave New Orleans for just a minute and take a little bit of a world view of coffee. Um, can you tell us a little bit about coffee being a top commodity in the world, the different types of coffee that are available out there, and how does PJ's secure that top quality coffee it needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what you're seeing on the screen is a map, and we call it the coffee belt. If you take a ruler and you draw a line, straight across the middle of that landscape, that would be the equator. And south and north of the equator, between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, are places are what we refer to as the coffee belt. Coffee can only be grown within that coffee belt. So near the equator is where all coffee origins exist. Um, you obviously have your coffees from the Americas. You have your African coffees. You also have your Indonesian coffees, and they all offer such different profiles, flavor profiles, taste profiles. And for us, the way that we select coffee, we select coffee based off of quality, but we also select coffee primarily based off of consistency. One of the things that I like to live by is that Phyllis made the right choices when she selected coffees to make the blends that are now, synonymous with PJs. So for instance, our PJs Espresso Dolce is, one of our signature blends. We have our Viennese blend, we also have, single origins like Columbia Supremo. When I'm sourcing coffee for us, I'm looking for consistency because we want our customers to have a consistent experience, when they develop which they like as their favorite. In terms of these origins, some of the things that they all have in common is that weather is the major impact at origin. And so specifically with the Americas, when you talk about, South and Central America coffee growing regions, as you can see, we have a wider range of origins that we can source from when there are any type of weather condition struggles. So drought, for instance, or the opposite of drought, if they get too much rain. So those are the things that we're looking for. In terms of, the two specific types of coffee, Arabica and Robusta, we source 100% Arabica beans. But I would like to clarify, say that we source 100% high quality Arabica coffee beans. It is very, very common in the coffee industry to see that term stated on a bag, 100%, Arabica. And as with anything, in terms of commodities, in terms of food products, we live in Southeast Louisiana, and so I often compare it to the shrimping industry. Those guys go out, they drop their nets, and they come in with these big hauls of shrimp, and what they do is they get back into port and they sort those out according to size, and that size is going to determine the price. And that's exactly what happens for us with coffee. Once the coffee is picked and harvested, the coffee goes through a sorting process, and we're bringing in those higher grades of coffee. One of our primary importers that we deal with is Westbelt Brothers. They reside right out of Louisiana, right out of New Orleans, not too far from our roasting facility. They're great partners of ours, have been for many decades now. And these guys are just phenomenal. They do work with us, and they do a lot of work for us. So they do some legwork by going to these origins and sourcing them. And a lot of times we join them on these origin trips as well. But it's very helpful to have um, a trusted, valued partner that you can work with, because when challenging times come, similar to what we're seeing a little bit of now, having a partner that not only assures that we're protected in terms of our coverage, our pricing, but just the peace of mind knowing that we have product, the peace of mind knowing that we're going to have coffee, whereas others out there might struggle if they don't have those relationships.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about the state of the coffee industry. Let's discuss some challenges that brands could potentially face when sourcing coffee and how we plan to navigate those challenges.
Yeah, this is probably, for this day and time, present day and time, this is probably one of the most important things. And this is one of the things that I am, trying my best to educate everyone that I can cross paths with, from, other roasters, our franchisees, consumers, employees within our brand. The state of the coffee industry right now is challenging, I would say, and that's something that that's a very strong statement, but it is factual. Lori mentioned that we are the number one commodity. Coffee is it's the number one edible commodity, consumable commodity. The only other commodity that exceeds coffee in value is the crude oil industry. So in terms of a consumable commodity, we are dealing with the largest volume commodity, and it can be volatile at times. If you look in this picture, one of the things that this farmer and I were looking at, you see a tree that, if most people may not know what that tree is supposed to look like, but I will tell you that those leaves are pointing to the ground. Whereas in a healthy, very, moist, proper rain oriented time, those leaves would be pointing upward. So the trees do a lot of things to protect themselves. But right now, there are some major origins like Brazil and Vietnam who have suffered through some serious drought conditions. And those, unfortunately, happen to be the two largest coffee providers in terms of countries of origin. And so that makes a big impact. And so going back to what I said on the previous slide, having partners, having trusted partners, having long-term relationships is extremely important, because it is the way for you to protect yourself against times like now. Over the years, we've had many different things, from, trucker strikes to maybe there's some political issues that may be going on in places like Mexico with the cartel. We have had shipping delays because of ocean freight, congestion at the Panama Canal, security risks in the Suez Canal. All of these things are things that we expect that are going to be happening. But we never expect for so many of those things to happen in the same period of time. And that is what is happening to the industry right now. And that's what we're working through. I think it's important for this group to understand we are PJ's Coffee of New Orleans, and that of New Orleans tag means a lot of things. Number one, we're bringing our New Orleans feel and hospitality, to wherever we place a PJ's, and that's something that makes us proud. So when you walk into a PJ's, the look and feel of New Orleans and those beignets and that coffee and everything that says New Orleans is what we're aiming for. But there's a bigger piece to it, and it pertains to this slide. New Orleans is a very significant port city. We are not the largest port city by far, but we are one of the largest port cities for coffee. The largest coffee roaster in the world operates off of not one, but two campuses right here in New Orleans, and that facility bears the name Folgers Coffee. So the volume of coffee that Folgers produces at their facilities and sends that coffee out to the world, I can tell you that it's numbers that are just mind-boggling. Why does that benefit us? Well, that benefits us because that means that New Orleans has to be set up as a port that can not only receive coffee in that volume, but to efficiently receive coffee in that volume. That means that while that amount of coffee is coming in through the ports, it makes it easier to bring other coffee into the ports. And whether that other coffee gets sent out of New Orleans via rail or via truck, that's not something that we have to be concerned about because I can literally throw a rock from the front of our roasting facility and it might actually land on the roof of a local coffee storage facility that is being utilized by coffee importers. So we're in a very, very sweet spot in terms of logistics. So it's, quite often, probably on a daily basis, there's at least a ship or two in port here in New Orleans offloading coffee. So that helps us in terms of supply, also helps us in terms of logistics and costs. In terms of what we see on the horizon for these, this perfect mix of issues that the industry is experiencing right now, there's a lot of speculation, but there's also a lot of experienced individuals like myself who collaborate. We bring our thoughts together. We communicate about what we're seeing, what we're learning as each of us are dealing with different sectors of the industry, and we come together and we make pretty good educated guesses on what we see. And what we see is that as tough as these times have been for some, we do see relief coming in the second half of the year. One of the things, give you an idea of just how dialed in we can get. Brazil, as I said, is the largest producing country in the world, the largest coffee provider in the world, and we're waiting for their crop to be harvested, and that will start in late May. And we have some promising information that it looks like it may be a pretty good crop. I think it's also important, in terms of future forecasting, Tori, that our guests understand that when I'm looking at the coffee market and when we're making decisions on purchasing coffee, that's not for today, that's not for tomorrow. When we're making these purchases, they are absolutely futures purchases. And our experience, our skill, our talent in successful coffee market forecasting was proven this year. Whereas as the market presented many challenges to a lot of companies, and the smaller companies were even more challenged, we were simply able to sit back and sort of watch everything go on and kind of be in a wait and see mode to let the dust settle. Now, granted, once the dust does settle and hopefully we find ourselves in a better place, then we kind of jump in there and we get going and we catch up for lost time on securing more of those futures contracts. But anything that I secure right now is going to be geared towards 2026 because we've already put ourselves in a good futures position for 2025. So how are we managing the cost? That's basically that answer. We are much less impacted by a lot of our roasting, partners and friends out there. And, we're not alone, but we're certainly in the minority when it comes to that. I've been doing this for 30 years, as Lori said, and I've never seen more challenging times for some roasters. And while my heart goes out to them, I have to say that, our team, should be proud of what we do, because we have absolutely, been challenged, and we've shown our resiliency and our ability to manage through tough times like this. So, when you're in an industry where, we're a franchise system, and we not only have to look out for the best, for the have the best interests of ourselves, but also our franchise partners, because without them, uh, we would not have a reason to be doing what we're doing. And so it does, it's a twofold thing, and it encompasses everybody's well-being and consideration, including our customers.
Thanks, Felton. You spoke earlier about the relationship that you have with Phyllis, our founder, and that you created a personal relationship with her also. But you've recently taken on a new role with the company. Can you tell us a little bit more about this new role as brand ambassador?
Yeah, so from having a great team at the roasting facility, we recognize that that affords need to become a little bit more flexible outside of the roasting facility. And so all of the things that we just talked about with forecasting and sourcing and that sort of thing, and doing that for future references or future purchases, are setting ourselves up for the future. The things that go on in the roasting facility, on a day-to-day basis is, the simple redundancy of roasting coffee, packaging coffee, and shipping out orders, and it may sound simple. There's so many bells and whistles that, come together to make all of that flow smoothly. But the freedom that that redundancy has afforded me is taking on this brand ambassador role. And I tell you, it's like for us, we might have had our thoughts and our intentions, and who would this impact? And it would probably impact different people on different levels and different ways. But it's exciting and it's rewarding for me to see that when I step into a PJ's Cafe on a store tour, we've done tours in the Houston market, the San Antonio market, the Dallas market. We've done store tours most recently in the Maryland market, the New Jersey market. And we got Missouri on tap, and everybody's just waiting their turn because word is getting out how important this is. And I'm humbled that I get to be this messenger. I get to be this tool that the brand is using to make this a success. Um, we go out to these stores and we do a cupping, and what you see in the picture on the top left is a new format that we decided to do. And that format is, I'll set that table up, and as you can see, there's props and examples of some of the things that I work with and deal with every day. But one of the things, if you can look closely, you'll see that I have two pour over containers on that table. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually brewing coffee on the spot, so that when someone walks up to that table, let's have a conversation. That's their opportunity to ask me questions, any questions they might have ever had about coffee, or to just learn about anything they can take away that day. We try to make it not so focused as a PJ's Coffee event in terms of what I'm teaching on the education piece. Our goal is to educate you on coffee, and as best we can. And we feel that if we make you a smarter coffee drinker, that makes you raise your standards to what you expect or what you desire in terms of when you do make a coffee purchase. And whether you make that coffee purchase at our cafe or any of our competitors, that you will hold them to that level of accountability. We see and we feel that since we're the source that is willing to teach you that and to raise you to that level of expectation, that people have shown loyalty. Our customers love the fact that we take the time to do such a thing. Um, what you see in the picture on the top left, I did not expect that when I would step into these stores, that these baristas, and I love this picture. I haven't seen this picture in a while. This picture, if you look at the intensity in those baristas' faces, it blows me away, and it humbles me at the same time that these guys are so interested in taking advantage of that opportunity to have me there. And we go through a really, really intense training process, as you know, with the folks that are opening up stores. But the one thing that they don't have yet at that point is that customer interaction. And when you take that customer interaction and those questions that they fielded from those customers over the short period of time, after they open, it's like a breath of fresh air when I go in, and now they are able to ask me a lot of those questions, and now it arms them to be ready for that question again when it comes to another customer asking, or when that same customer walks in the door to say, hey, listen, I got an answer to that question. And there's so many things that could be taken for granted, or maybe not deemed as important, but something as important as, hey, I got to drink decaf coffee. How do I know that the decaffeinating process removed all of the caffeine? How do I know that I can trust the coffee because of the process that was used? Well, that's what we bring to that table that day. We make certain that you have that information, and we create that education, for our customers. So this has been phenomenal. This has been outstanding, and we absolutely had plans to keep this going. And it's fun for me because I never know where the next trip is going to take me.
I know that's an exciting part of that new role for you. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you for continuing to hit the road for us.
All right. We would now like to play a video that shares more about our brand and the soul of coffee, narrated by our very own Felton Jones.
When you say coffee has a soul, not everyone will understand. It's much more. It's about craftsmanship, story of a skilled farmer working towards a better life.
We hope you enjoyed a look at the soul of coffee. Thank you, Felton, for sharing all of your insights, experience, and passion for the coffee industry and with us today. Before we let you go, would you like to share any secrets or plans for the future at PJ's?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this for anybody that is a current fan of PJs, and maybe frequents their PJ stores. One of the things that I recognize is that when I go out on these store tours, and I choose to do the pour over method, um, specifically because it brings out the ultimate best of what a coffee has to offer. And so, in doing so, I've not only been utilizing that brewing method, but I've also been teasing a little bit with the coffee that I choose. And it's not always a coffee that's carried, in the PJ's Cafe, on the shelves yet. And I say that to say that the overwhelming response that we've gotten to not only that brewing method, but also some of the coffees that I've presented. It's very refreshing that our customers are open to those new experiences. Um, and when you talk about craft, um, that's kind of one of those things that can be put into that category. And when consumers are given, something like that as a new experience, um, it's amazing how serious they start to take their coffee after that. And so, it's so refreshing to me to hear people talk about how they make their coffee out of their French press or they do their pour overs at home. And we have an overwhelming number of people because the machines, the equipment have gotten to be a lot more affordable and very much more quality driven and effective. There's so many people that I meet that have little espresso machines at home, and so all of those things are really, really important to us as a brand because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to, encourage that. Yeah, and that's it's not just about walking into the store and walking out with a cup of coffee in your hand. Everybody has in some type of brewing equipment at home, and they make a choice of what type of coffee they bring home, and it's very easy to make that decision based off of just a value priced coffee. But when you get an opportunity to really experience good coffee, I've seen where it's a very easy choice for people to make, and that's what PJ's wants to be.
Well, keep up the great work in creating all these wonderful flavor profiles for us, Felton. We appreciate you. On behalf of the PJ's franchise development team, we want to not only thank Felton for joining us today, but all of you for joining us. Our next webinar will take place on Thursday, April 10th. There's a QR code here on the screen if you'd like to take a photo of it and go ahead and RSVP for that next webinar. We're going to dive deeper into why now is the right time to franchise with PJ's. We'll talk about hot markets and our top areas of expansion, the economics of owning a PJ's franchise, and the growth of the brand. So we look forward to having you at our next webinar on Thursday, April 10th.
And if you have any questions for us or Felton, feel free to submit them to the email address that's on the screen. We are running a little low on time today, but we really appreciate you all joining us. Thank you for your interest in franchising with us. Thank you, Felton, for joining us again. And we hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.